What's up YouTube? Lambo here with a new video, and the reason I'm making a new video is because Rogue came up with something super fun, which is Mass Overseer's Changeling Nydus aggression against Terran. Something that we haven't seen before in the way that he's playing it. He's combining the style that Dark made maybe 2 years ago, which is the Cave Bob style. The reason we're calling it Cave Bob is because it reminds us a lot of the Twitch emote Cave Bob, that style. Since it's pretty brain dead to play, you don't need to scout, you don't need to react. You're kind of safe against everything, and then you just try to kill your opponent with lurkers. That's why we call it the Cave Bob. But yeah, the Roach into very quick lurkers. And he's combining that style, the safety of that style, and the lurker, the amounts of lurkers that it gives you, with just making a lot of overseers, and then trying to bust through with Mass Lurker, Nydus Worm. Triple Nydus Worm, Mass Lurker. Now, even Triple Nydus Worm isn't completely new. I've seen Raynor do it before, also with lurkers, but I haven't seen anyone make the amount of overseers that Rogue has been producing, even though we used to do this against Protoss. That was mostly so they have a harder time feedbacking our Vipers. Against Terran, we have used multiple overseers, especially because you lose them very often. They get sniped down in late game against Ghost, and we have used the Changelings as well to get in Nydus Worms, but not to this degree. You will see a little bit later in case you haven't seen it yet. I'm just going to speed over this. The early game was very good for Rogue. It was a failed 2-base gas first Halberd Banshee attack, which dealt very little damage. So Rogue was off to a pretty decent start, but Clem being Clem, it doesn't really matter how his start goes. He always kind of stabilizes and then gets into a mid game. It has to be mentioned that this was being played on an A, which is Clem's his biggest weakness. He doesn't really have many weaknesses, but his biggest weakness is that he's playing a lot worse with ping. But I have another match prepared for you guys because I've seen Rogue do this 3 times now, and thankfully Wardy gave me the replays for this. One was against Gumio. I didn't really think much of it back then when I saw it the first time. I thought it was very interesting back then already. I took a little break from StarCraft, so I didn't try it myself, but I had it in the back of my mind that I want to try this myself. But Gumio is not very fond of the Ghost, so making lurkers against him is like a cheat code, so that game doesn't really count. Then he did one against Byun, which I actually didn't see, but Wardy told me he has an extra one. So that one I'm very interested to observing with you guys as well. That also made me message Byun, asking him if he thinks that style is actually good, if it's worth reviewing, if I should try it myself, and he said yes, it's very annoying to play against. He compared it with the Widowmine playstyle from Terrans. It's very just annoying. It's attention efficient, I would call it, the style. And then I saw him beat Clem with it as well, and then of course I need to make a video about it, and I need to try it out myself. But before I try it out myself, we need to analyze why it works, and what the strengths and weaknesses are of that style. So the way Rogue plays the Cave Up is he goes 1-1 missile, then he goes 2-2 missile, he rushes out lurkers, and then he gets a couple of Vipers. This is really for safety reasons, and then he starts making Nydus Worms. Now that he's a little bit richer, he's adding 2 extra Nydus Worms. He had 1 earlier on. If this one gets up, that's cool and all. But his early game and his mid game is just about stabilizing. He wants to stabilize on a lot of gas, because he needs a ton of gas for this stuff. Right now, he has 11 geysers, and one of them is rich. So he took the gas not only on his... He took the gas on... Oh no, I'm sorry, I miscounted. It's 9 gases, but it's basically 10 because this one is rich. But I wouldn't be too surprised to see him take these right away. Yeah, so then it's 11. And usually you only take the first 8 gases. Maybe 9 or 10. But realistically, even from this style, you transition into Lingbane Hydra, Viper. So it's very uncommon to take your first, basically 12 gases right away. The thing is, with this style, he's very, very gas intensive, because a lurker costs 1-to-1 mineral to gas ratio. The Vipers cost 2-to-1. He doesn't really need that many Vipers, but the Overseers also cost a lot. Overseers are very expensive. They cost 150 minerals and 50 gas. So quite expensive. Now he just wants to get rid of the safety roaches that he had earlier on. He flies in here, and this is where everything starts going wrong for Clem. In this position, honestly, if you give me this position against Clem, I'm gonna lose it like 10 out of 10 times, honestly, because I don't think this is a good position. The weakness of this Cave Up style, because this Cave Up style, I told you what it's good for, right? It's pretty brain dead to play. You don't need to scout, you're safe against everything. You will always get to that stage. So what is the weakness of it, you might wonder? Well, the weakness is that the Terran gets to set up into late game very, very calmly. They can do whatever they want. They don't even need to max out on Byun. They can go straight into Ghost before they're even maxed out for the first time. It's also a little bit hard to deal with multi-prong efficiently because you're working with roaches and unupgraded Zerglings as the speedier part of your army. So you need to rely a lot on spores. Then also your army is not the most supply efficient, so you need to stay on a lower worker count at first. So what is that style weak against? Is if the Terran just sits there and does nothing, which they like to do anyways, most of them. Clem doesn't, but most other Terrans do this voluntarily. But Clem has evolved as a player as well. He's gotten very, very good at the late game himself, and he has embraced these types of scenarios. So this is a good position for the Terran, even though the early game wasn't super hot. This is where it starts. This one Changeling gives him vision. So far we have a lot of Overseers. So we see 17 Overseers, and he also keeps making Overlords. This is not that many Overlords yet, it's just 26. You need maybe around 18 or so at this point to be maxed, maybe a little bit less because he has that many hatcheries, but it's common to have maybe 20 to 24 Overlords, let's say. But he's making 13 extra Overlords. He's spending the bank instead of accumulating a massive bank. He's spending it on extra Overlords and Overseers to the point where he even gets, I think against Gumi we had over 30 Overseers, maybe even over 40. Against Byun we'll have to wait and see. Then he comes and attacks here. So this was the first prong, right? Here, Clem's attention is divided towards the bottom. Then he sees this massive blob. This looks scary. It's 5 Zerglings and a Hydra. It looks scary though, so he's looking at it and he's like, okay, wait, there's nothing there. What is he missing? Of course, there's a Nydus Worm in his main base. Now, this is always the scariest Nydus Worm, but let's see how Clem deals with it. The first Nydus Worm, it wasn't technically the first, but the early Nydus Worms are always the ones that are more scary, because usually at some point the Terrans then leave units to deal with them. Clem manages to clean this up semi-effectively. At the same time, Rogue coming in at the front, not with the greatest trade. Now Clem leaves some tanks and some units behind, has a planetary at this base. He is F2ing around a little bit. But yeah, here come the Changelings. And Clem is clicking them with the Marines individually, which for Clem, I'd imagine this is actually fun to do. This is target practice. He has the best mouse accuracy in the game, bar none. There's no one else that has as good of a mouse accuracy as him. And he's very, very good at this. But this is still... He's looking at this for 3 seconds, doing nothing else. So it's not attention efficient, because you just hold down the Changeling hotkey. They will plop them all at once, and then you just send them in. You can even split them up. Clem is clicking them one by one. The tanks would probably get rid of them a little bit sooner, but better sooner than later, honestly. There's always a Changeling that's going to get into your base. I don't think that... I think it's unavoidable that there are going to be Changelings inside your base. And so what Clem has in store for that is siege tanks. Now, I'm going to talk in this video about what I think the Terrans could do better. And what I think if this style is actually viable, how good is it, am I going to play it, etc. But let's first look at how this plays out. So if our resources lost is fine. It's not like... It's not. That's a double abduct on a Viking and he lost the Viper. That's pretty sad. Here come the Nydus Worms. 3 Nydus Worms. There's no tank in range of the Nydus Worms on the right side. He now resieges 2 of them. Goes into the main with a lot of Lurkers. Lurkers are out of position. The Ghosts are now out of position, rather. The Ghosts went into the main base. Ghosts are out of positions. Accidentally manner-mute the Lurkers. The Lurkers siege forward here and get a good fight against just a couple of tanks that were left over. It's very hard to even see what's going on here as a Terran. He scans, starts sniping some Overseers, which I don't think is worth it, by the way, unless they're super, super high on energy on the Ghost, since Rogue has like 27 at this point, 27 Overseers. Now he once again tries to split his army. Gets rid of the Nydus Worms here, gets rid of the Nydus Worms up there. And if you look at it at this stage, you would think that it's not working, right? The resource loss is now significantly worse for Rogue, and he's actually down in bank. But what he already invested his bank into was a lot of Overseers. So what he gets from that is basically free vision. Once anything starts going down, like once action starts to happen, it's impossible to shut down all of these Changelings. I saw a pig say that you can just invest into walls, which I think is very, very difficult on this map. And I also think it's going to be even harder if you want to keep expanding. You can maybe do it momentarily, but walls are also just bad against mass lurkers. So it's rather difficult to get walls set up that just stay there. As you could see here, he couldn't even defend this position, which was a fortified position with the planetary. So I think getting up walls everywhere is going to be rather tough. I'm going to talk about a little more what I think Terran should do against this. But the basic principle is you're always going to get the changelings in, and then you have map vision everywhere. And you can decide exactly where you want to position the Nydus worms, which is the beauty about this, because there's always some defense, but you can see, okay, there's a tank here, there's a tank here, there's nothing maybe up here, and if this tank is blocked by the changelings and I put a Nydus worm here, he also needs to pay attention, right? Otherwise, because this tank doesn't shoot it. So I can maybe put one Nydus here, and one here, and one here. And that's the beauty of it, because once action starts happening, I think it is impossible to clean up all of these changelings, and you will get the Nydus worms up. In the meantime, it is also super hard for Clem to do something on the other side of the map. Even though he is definitely the faster player, it's so much easier in StarCraft in general to be the one on the offense. That's why very often you see these big momentum shifts in TVZ, where one player is attacking and all of a sudden he looks way faster than his opponent. That's just because you are deciding when you're paying attention. Clem didn't pay attention here in the main. 4 lurkers get up. Then the army comes at the front. He's not in position. And he GG's out. And this is a rogue who's winning the game with 5 lurkers, 13 banelings, 12 hydras, 0 vipers, a bunch of zerglings, and 92 workers. And he just tilted Clem into GG. And I think Clem even smashed the desk. The reason I knew about this and also about the Byun is because Pig also made a video on it. And apparently Clem smashed his desk. I watched this live, but on Wordy's stream and on Wordy's stream I did not see a desk smash because obviously Wordy is just in-game observing. So this was a GG called. Clem forfeited the match, and that was also the last game of the series, and that was the lower bracket finals, which means the winner went on to play against Max Specs. I will do a small spoiler alert, so mute this for the next 10 seconds. If you don't want to know the result, then Max Specs won the grand finals, I think 4-0. He had the 1 game advantage, so it was 3-0, but yeah. Rogue didn't manage to win that one, but it was a very important match, is my point. Okay, so let's come back, everybody, and let's analyze this. So let's see when the first changelings got in. I think the first changeling that really got in was the one to make the Nydus worm right here. And let's see at what Rogue does in the meantime. The game plan until here is very, very simple. You just make roaches to survive, then you make lurkers as fast as possible and a viper or 2. So that if your opponent is tank pushing, you siege the lurkers and then you abduct the tanks. You can't tank push, right? Tank pushes are terrible against this. So you make roaches, then you make lurkers and vipers. You don't need hydras really. It's mostly, it looks like roachling lurker most of the time. And then you drone up a little bit further once you have a bunch of lurkers out. Until that point, you should stay at around 80 workers. You don't really want to get more than that. You get 8 gases up right away. This is the first time he actually shows the Nydus worm. Now Clem clears up the Overlord and he feels safe because he has a sensor tower here seeing it. He has the turrets here, so he should be seeing everything, right? So he feels safe. He even snipes the Overseer. And here, this single changeling, was it this one? No, I already missed it myself, and I'm I know it's gonna happen. Oh, he missed one here with a focused target fire with the Marines. This is what I think snowballed a bunch of stuff. So Clem moves his entire army here because it looks like so much, especially on the minimap from the sensor tower. Like you look at this, you're like, okay, this is a massive blob, has to be a big army. So he's paying attention to this, obviously. He missplits his army, there's nothing in the main base. And at this point, while he's clearing this up, it's basically impossible to kill all of the changelings. So if new changelings were to come in, which they didn't yet, right? Now they're coming in. It becomes very, very difficult. Also, the more you expand, the harder it becomes for Terran. First, I think it's good that he stayed on 5 base. That part I really liked. Now, these are the changelings I think that really get in. There's another one. It's a single changeling that once again gets in. It's also much better to split the changelings as much as possible. As you can see here, then the Nydus worms get up. And now he's out of position. So this is... It looked rather simple, considering I lose like every game against Clem. not every game. Obviously, I beat him some games, but it's like 1 out of 8, and I need to work for it, and I need to play like an insane game or have a really, really sick early game. And this looks rather simple. It looks like a rather simple way of winning. So what is the solution to this? I believe that you need to live with the fact that the Nydus worms will get up and you need to deal with them. I honestly think I think that's the best call. I think you can... Another thing that I think is super strong against this is Liberators, because it's a better fail-safe. So if you don't have enough units in your main base, which I also don't think tanks are the best. If you don't F2 that much, I think Marauders would be the best, because those clear up Nydus worms very, very quickly, even if it's multiple ones. Like you can leave maybe a tank with a bunker of Marauders if you really have to F2 the entire time next to them, and then you see it go up. You stim the Marauders towards it, maybe 2 bunkers with 8 Marauders, because there's a huge investment from the Zerg as well. Most of the time he has stuff inside the Nydus worms. He also is making sure to have Nydus worms in the center of the map, so he can shuffle the lurkers around to whichever position he wants to be at. There's Nydus worms everywhere. But yeah, from this position I would not beat Clem, I can tell you that much. And there, you can't really clear up Liberators. Like Liberators, if you're not paying attention, they're easy to not F2. They're great at clearing up lurkers. And they're good at this as well, because I don't think Rogue can afford to have many lurkers and Hydras. And Vipers, all of that. His army is just going to become too small. But at this point, there's already so many Changelings. I'm not going to go back to see at which point exactly they got into his base, but things start to fall apart. This is a momentum-based style, so he's not trying to expand towards his opponent and trying to take resources away from him, which also loses you resources. But this might make the style even a little bit stronger, because let's say he's mining from this base and this base, while Clem is just trying to put out one fire here, a fire there, a fire in his main base, a fire in his fourth base, a fire in his fifth base, all at the same time. The last thing that Clem can do is, you know, deny mining here. But since Rogue was actually super low on resources, the question is that worth it, mining from the forward bases, since you lose mining time there? And then if it ever gets pushed, I mean, this one in particular would be crazy, since you would then lose mining time again, because the drones need to run back, preferably if you even save them. Sometimes you lose them, you have to remake them, which slows down your economy even more. It's a little bit more risky, and I'm assuming he wins the games like that already. In that case, it's fine, and you don't need to do it, but it probably would make the style even a little bit stronger to at least take this space, for example, early, and then put 16 drones on the minerals there, at the very least, to mine that as early as humanly possible. I think that would make the style a little bit stronger, but I think this was not the real test of the build. I think the real test is going to be the game against Byun, because Byun is super strong in late game. I practice a lot with Byun, and I always ask him, because I even in games where I do well against him, I especially lose in the late game, so I ask him for advice, and he says if he gets up to 5 bases, he doesn't lose against any Zerg besides Terran in late game. So that's why I want to watch the Byun game with you guys. We're gonna go over that in a little bit. That one was even longer. This one was a little bit more simple. Clem was just out of position twice, heavily out of position, and then lost and got punished. And yeah, we're gonna go into the next one. Alright, now that we're in game 2, I wanna just real quick explain the economics of this build, because it is very, very expensive what he's doing. So one Overseer is 200 resources, and he's making them as extra Overlords. He's over-maxing on Overlords. So one Overseer is 200 resources, which means 10 of them are 2,000 resources. He makes 30 of them, which is 6k resources. Those are 6k resources just in order to make this strategy work, right? That's 6k resources that you don't have in the bank, in case, I mean, you're poor, your economy starts going down. Let's say you're getting counter dropped and stuff, or you're getting pushed and you run out of units, stuff like that. That's 6k resources. Then every single Nydus worm, I think a Nydus worm costs 150 gas, 100 minerals, but I might be wrong on that. Every exit at the very least costs 75, so that's 150. So 10 Nydus worms cost, what did I say, 150? So 10 Nydus worms cost 1.5k, 20 costs 3k. Let's say he wins a game with 40 Nydus worms, that's another 6k resources, so that's 12k resources. Most of the time I think it's going to take him more Nydus worms than that, so it costs quite a lot. So that's why I think the strategy of absorbing the Nydus worms, letting him make them, might not be too bad. You can clear the Changelings, but I think preparing to let the Changelings get there Like, you don't want to let them get in as many as possible, because at some point your base is just going to be full of changelings and you can't move anymore. So you need to kill them sooner or later, rather sooner than later. But you have to prepare for the fact that some of them will get in. So I think one thing that you can fix is after 6 medevacs, you get 2 liberators, then you can maybe get 2 more if you need more medevacs. But after, you just produce liberators. Without range, I think liberators are very good against this style. You can have a couple at the front, which makes this army splitting a little bit easier, but especially against the Nydus worms, they're very efficient at dealing with those. And then I think Marauders are the best anti-Nydus force. And if you have to press F2 the entire time, which I know every Terran plays with F2, but I think in these scenarios you're not really forced to F2, since you're not in the danger of dying. You leave a hotkey with maybe 2 medevacs and 8 Marauders. Or even 8 Marauders without medevacs, you can still Marauders very often. And yeah, as the anti-F2 you can use bunkers. You can put them in bunkers. This was suggested to me first by Skillos, and I thought it was very smart. So obviously not a Terran player that can come up with smart solutions to problems. As we have Rogue actually going for Roach, Ravager, Hydra to gain map control, and he's trying to punish Byun taking the forward base. Byun always takes this base and then he makes an orbital. I've experienced this myself quite often, and then when he just has a million tanks. So if you try to engage here, he just lifts the orbital, he runs the SCVs, and especially if you're playing Baneling heavy, it's not going to be pretty. So what Rogue is doing right here is, I think, very annoying for the Terran, which is he's just zoning. But in theory, this is the weakness of the style. You're stuck with an army that just loses to tanks and ghosts. So if the Terran just sits there and makes tanks and ghosts, you cannot trade efficiently. So now we're at the stage where, once again, I would say I'm not winning this game against Byun, even though this wasn't... He's not in a bad position per se, but... it's not a great position either, and I don't think these traits are great either. Like, you cannot kill ghosts with this army. You have nothing to jump on ghosts, you have nothing to punish ghosts for coming forward, sniping you. Every single snipe will be a lot of damage, or most of the time it's even gonna be confirmed kills. Here comes a Ling run by that is defended. Byun is the god of camping like this. He always makes many factories. Now he only has 2 actually. He used to make 5 factories. Maybe he adds more a little bit later. Now he has the second army on the way. For now it's just very, very ghost heavy, and he keeps sniping these. What is his main base defense looking like? Couple Marauders, couple of siege tanks, a lot of siege tanks actually, and a lot of turrets. And what is Rogue doing? Well, he's messing Overseers. He's sieging the Overseers together with the Lurkers. Now the Changelings come in. There's a lot of Changelings inside of Byun's main base. Let's take a look at it from Rogue's POV. He sees the setup pretty much perfectly with the Changelings once again. So where would be the weakness if you have three Nice Worms here, right? So the weakness would be here. He would need to split those a little bit more. He's trying to go and engage in the front, which I disagree with, because these traits just cannot be good for Rogue. They cannot ever be efficient. Here comes the 1 Nydus Worm. Here's the 3 Nydus Worms very, very forward. If he doesn't feel as comfortable in his position, or if he maybe doesn't play against Byun, he would place him further back and then get extra Nydus Worms to the front, which is also a fine way of doing things. And once again, we look at the bottom. It's looking really bad for Rogue, right? He's behind in terms of bank. He's mining a lot, so he's not going to run out of resources anytime soon. But the Terran sits very comfortably on a maxed out army, and he already is starting to amass a bank. So that's usually where most Zerg players will lose the game. Rogue, for now, didn't really get anything done with the Nydus Worms. This is kind of where the momentum breaks, usually, for most Zerg players. The Nydus Worms don't get the initial kills, they don't get in initially, you can't bust the 5th base. Terran starts to mess up orbitals, and it becomes very, very difficult to do anything after that. He's trying on both fronts, trying to abuse the range of the Lurkers. That's a nice kill there on the CC. He's losing a lot of units here again. Now already down 10k resources. What is he doing? More Changelings. 3 Overseers on the right. Let's take a look at it purely from Rogue's POV. He injects, then makes Changelings. He goes forward here, loses a bunch of units to Ghost. Running on top of Ghost tank with Lurkers, even if you have 20 Overseers on top, turns out doesn't work. It doesn't work. The Overseers don't actually do anything. They might tank an accidental snipe or so, but he traded now 15k resources worse. He's at 130 supply. If he spends his money, he's barely gonna be maxed out. It's looking very, very bad for Rogue. So Byun even feels the space to do counter aggression. He kills a base. He has enough units here. He trades even further. He sees, okay, he scans, there's nothing there. There's no banelings, there's nothing to punish me. He then picks up and leaves. Rogue now down almost 20k resources. Just a reminder how much base is worth. I think it's 10.8k minerals per base, because it's 1,800 times 4 and then 900 times 4. So that's 10,800 minerals, and then it's 2.25k, so it's 4.5k gas, which amasses to about 15k resources. So in order to make this worth, he would need to mine half a base, a little bit more. So like, let's say 2/3 of a base from Byun's side. It doesn't always work like that, because Terran has to make a lot of buildings that usually Zerg doesn't have to make, which in this case might not be totally true, because he's spamming a lot of Nydus worms himself. But either way, if you take a base from your opponent, it's 15k resources from them to you, so that's a 30k difference that you can theoretically trade worse than your opponent with. It's not always that simple, so it's not that exact math, but that's just to give you a general idea about how far behind he already is and how much more he now needs to mine in order to have a competitive game with Byun, if Byun mines out, or if the map in general mines out. He actually needs to defend these Nydus worms now, which is going to be quite annoying. Triple Nydus worm goes up. SCVs are being pulled. Byun is panicking a little bit. Marauders killed very, very quickly. And once again, he's safe. I really wonder why he's not staying there with the Marauders. I think it would be best for them to stay around here. As he kills this base, so Rogue didn't mine anything from this side yet. He's mining from this, he's taking this base, but he didn't mine any. Like, if Byun is just taking these two bases, he's mined half the map and he has won the game. That's usually how it goes. Changelings go into the base. This is where Byun pulled away from with the Marauders. And he knows now he's going back in. But what is Rogue doing? He's unloading every single lurker. And now what the issue is with this unloading of lurkers is that there won't be detection. The thing is, with this many lurkers, a lot of the times the spines will deal AoE damage even to cloaked ghosts. Let's see if he cloaks them. He doesn't. I think he should cloak them and go here, because there's nothing in range of the lurkers, and then just kill all of the lurkers. Oh, he's occupied, because there is a massive attack at the same time at the front. That's well played by Rogue. That looked like so many lurkers, I didn't think he would have much else left over, but he doesn't have a lot of queens. He only has 4 queens remaining. And he still has a decent amount of Lingbane Hydra at the front, so he's attacking here at the same time. Byun, whenever he takes an orbital that's on low ground, will make it into an orbital whenever he takes a CC on the low ground, where he can have tanks on the high ground, so now he clears up the lurkers. This was probably the best trade so far for Rogue, because not only has he denied some mining, he has created chaos, he has denied some production, and the trade was about even. So that is the by far best attack that we have seen out of him so far. So one of the things that we can see is you might lose your production. Maybe it's worth putting more production here. That's another thing that you could speculate on. Especially, it's important to have constant tank production. Maybe you can make your extra 3 barracks here. Who knows? So the orbital lifts, the orbital dies. Rogue still not really mining from Byun's base, he's mining a little bit from here, but this is not even that big of a deal if he mines the space completely. If Byun gets this and this with the current way the game is going, he should be fine. And you can see that Byun has added the Liberators that I was talking about. He is mostly using them at the front because he recognizes that there is not a lot of anti-air, so they can't really get abducted and killed that easily. This is why I think Marauders are better. I think they kill Nydus worms quicker than Marines. I think 8 Marauders should always, even if you're slow with reacting, should kill 3 Nydus worms. I haven't tested it myself, but to me that sounds about right. Byun lost the base in the bottom in the meantime. So you can see myself getting distracted by the Nydus worms. It's also partly because I am trying to theorycraft myself while watching this replay. But you can see how easy it is to lose your bases because you have to over-defend. Since if there's Nydus worms that are popping up, you're in a bad position. So he also has way too many units here. There's there's no way in hell any Zerg is ever running in here. So yeah, there's a little bit of a missplit here from Byun. It happens. He didn't have a sensor tower here either. This map is very hard to kill Terran on because if they have a sensor tower here, this entire area is very secured usually. But yeah. Rogue takes this base, and now it becomes... It's actually questionable. The situation is questionable. I'm not sure if Byun is still in that good of a position. He mined a lot of resources here, and this is probably impossible to take for Zerg. But now if you look at the map, Rogue has way more of it. Byun still is very rich. He needs to get his supply block sorted out mostly. Because he's at 160 supply right now, and even though he has money in the bank, and he's already has units in production, he does not have the supply for them. Farm Marines and Marauder and the Ghosts are the guys that are on the Nydus denial job. Pretty funny that an Overlord actually was the one to give vision to this. And Rogue now fully transitioned into Lingbane Hydra. He has 8 Lurkers still. These are probably waiting inside the Nydus, yep. So these are not really currently on the field helping him with his main base army, but there's no way Rogue can do anything here. So Rogue is just trying to mine this base. He will try to backstab if he sees the opportunity, but these Nydus worms, they're mostly wasted. All of this is wasted money. Resources lost 20k worse. Army value, by the way, huge because of the overseers. They count with they count for the army value. So those are 33 overseers. He only has 5 overlords left as simple overlords. Byun now slowly pushing to the front. Good abduct. Nydus worm goes up here. Lurkers can go out, go back in probably. Go back in, go back in, go back in. Nope, he just sacks the Lurkers. This, oh! He once again attacked at the front. I am tunnel visioning harder when I'm observing than when I'm playing the actual game. Thank God, otherwise I would be very bad in multi-front situations. Here come the Changelings as well at the same time as the Nydus goes up. This is the perfect way to sync up your Changelings. It's easier to, I think, split up the Changelings in... So you select all the Changelings, right? And then you send them here and shift-click, and then you deselect. You go here and shift-click, deselect. Here and shift-click, deselect. Here and shift-click, deselect. Here and shift-click, so they space out. And then if you do anything offensively, there will be... I think there's going to be Changelings that are bound to get into your opponent's space. And now he attacks with the Banelings. I cannot imagine this is a good trade. Yeah, this was not a good trade. The fortress of Byun over here in the center of his bases. I don't think that you want anything to do with this. Could be a brutal transition. Could be not bad against the army that Byun has. Byun is just very good at controlling the... zoning out infestors, so even just ghosts are pretty good in his hands against Brood Lords. The moment he has like, 2 Thors, that's usually enough. And a couple of Vikings. Nydus Worm goes up, Nydus Worm goes up. Rogue lost his base, very importantly. He hasn't mined too much from it. He's mined about 325 resources per mineral patch. That's not too much. This base, Byun is still mining it. This base is not quite outmined yet. Rogue goes in again. Everything is cloaked. Didn't look like he killed much. Byun just kites back until the Zerg... It's very simple to micro this as a Terran. If you have a good setup, you just micro back the Ghost until the Zerg units are occupied with attacking something else, and then you A-move. And preferably snipe, if there's something to snipe, but even mostly the A-move. That's the job there. He's now 36k resources up. That's more than an entire base mined from the Zerg. That belongs to the Terran, which Rogue absolutely did not do. He has mined this one though, so if he mines this and if he mines these both, he has mined about 30k resources more. A little bit more even since he mined some of this. But I don't think Byun is going to let him mine the rest of this. Okay, Nydus Worm goes up here once again. Continuous rounds of Changelings. I'm sure Rogue can get even better still at using the Changelings. This is something that I don't think he has done as many times as we have done other things, like Spray and Creep, etc. There's Changelings once again. I think at this point maybe you stop with the Nydus Worms. He still uses them. This is not... the Nydus Worms in this game haven't been as efficient as we have seen them in the game against Clem. And now he's on a Ling, Bane, Infestor army, and I think he just... yeah. I sped through it once, and I know how the game ends. It will end in a draw, because Rogue is just gonna play for a draw now. He's gonna sit there and say, okay, you need to come to me. If you creep towards, or if you come attack me, I can take a fight, then remix and take a fight, and then I'm gonna win. If I attack into you, there's no way I'm gonna win, which I absolutely agree with. I think there's a chance that Byun wins this game. I cannot believe, by the way, they made Wardy watch this for 11 more minutes. Until then, they decided to draw, even though both of them were never planning on actually attacking. I think that's hilarious. But I honestly think that Byun... I'm just gonna speed through it, because I think Byun maybe could have slowly but surely went forward to break Rogue, because Rogue's bank honestly wasn't that big. It was a single remax, and Byun had money in the bank as well. Usually these scenarios are being won by Terran, if they decide to go for it. It's not like he has a Broodlord army that actually can win a fight. He has a massive army, don't get me wrong, he has a massive army, but it's mostly Zerglings. 151 Zerglings, 25 Fighters, 50 Baning, 6 Infestors, 4 Vipers. It's a pretty sick army, not gonna lie. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna do this myself a bunch. I'm still on break, winning deadlock tournaments and such. So once I'm playing StarCraft again a lot, I will try this, especially against Terran, but maybe even a little bit against Protoss. I'm thinking even just a vision of the Changelings might be good. I'm probably not gonna make 33 Overseers. I think like 20 is enough. But if I have the money, might as well. And I will come back with my findings to you guys. We'll obviously still see the end of this match, so you guys can see how ridiculously stupid this looks. But I think from the Zerg POV, it makes a lot of sense. You spend a lot of money and trying to break the Terran, but it's just a very attention efficient way of playing. You are the offensive player. The Terran needs to take out the Nydus Worms the entire time, so you can't really do anything on your side. I think if you combine this with offensive expanding, it's gonna be maybe even a little bit harder, although he tried it a little bit here, and Byun just made sure to shut it down, so I'm not entirely sure. Theoretically, I think investing the... whatever I said earlier, maybe 12k resources into the Mass Nydus Worms and the Overseers, especially on bigger maps, could pay off. And whenever you actually do it in order to kill the Terran, it's obviously good. So I'm gonna try it. I think from the Terran's point of view, I just think they should have a hotkey specifically for a bunch of Marauders in their main to hold it, and they should have Liberators ready in case a Nydus Worm gets up to get rid of the Lurkers, because it's always just Lurkers in the Nydus. It's not like he has 30 Hydras. You don't have supply for 20 Lurkers and 30 Hydras, unless they have no workers, which in this case would be true, but it's not in the relevant situation. So now it looks like Byun is slowly moving out, right? I'm like, okay, I think Byun has this, honestly, if I'm looking at it like this. It also is a massive army, but this map in particular has pretty sick choke points where you can put the tanks. You can move forward. I mean, if you really try hard, you can move forward the buildings and create new walls, and you just scan forward. The Zerg has no way of picking off units like one by one. You have the Vipers, but they're getting outranged by Ghosts. If you get close to the army, you're gonna get just sniped. So I think what he should have done, and if this was a bigger game, I don't think he would have drawn. I think you bring forward the orbitals. And you scan, you try to get rid of the creep, you just put a couple of units forward with Medivacs in case something goes wrong. Even if you lose a couple of units, it's not that bad. You try to set up here, and then, yeah, just push forward. Try to choke out the Zerg with while denying all the creep. I also think theoretically Rogue should respread creep here to make it as hard as possible for the Terran. On whichever side is not okay, he's doing it now. He also has 126 larvae, which I'm not sure is enough, actually. Maybe a couple more hatcheries wouldn't be too bad. That's only 252 Zerglings. I don't think that's enough because he has enough bank to remax twice. I don't know what they said, but I'm assuming like, bro, are you? Let's draw. This is stupid. And Byun says, draw MGG. They actually made Wardy sit here while nothing was happening for over 10 minutes, which I think is kind of funny. But all in all, super fun strategy. I have been waiting for something like this to happen for quite a while. Ever since Rogue came back, I watched his games because I was like, okay, he can be quite creative and he can come up with new solutions to problems. And he actually came up with something new here, which he hasn't done before. He has actually played very, very standard ever since he came back. He's played very standard. He's maybe recycled some older strategies, some older styles, but none that have looked too interesting. So now we finally have something new and I'm gonna try it out. I'm super excited. I hope you guys also maybe try this at home. Make some Terran's mod because this looks hella fun to play. You're finally the aggressor yourself, even though you have to sit on your ass with this for the first 11 minutes or so. But I think what happens after makes up for it. You punish those Terrans just sitting there doing nothing. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this type of content. I will maybe make another video on my secondary channel where I try out this stuff, which is Lambo TV, and maybe Lambo TV too. If you search for Lambo TV, you should be able to find it. And yeah, if not, maybe I'm even making it. If I'm having super big success, I will make an update video on this on my main channel even. Until then, see you guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and bye.